All of the NFL has descended upon Indianapolis for this year's scouting combine, as they always do. That means the Browns' new front office and head coach, Andrew Berry, the GM, Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, meeting with the national media, meeting with scouts to try to build that roster out into a playoff contender. Kevin Stefanski had a chance to talk about his relationship with Andrew Berry and how they are definitely in alignment.
Yeah, Andrew and I have had a pretty good relationship prior to this job for me. He's somebody, again, that I met way back when, was introduced to by Leslie Frazier when Andrew was with the Colts. And then we've stayed in touch. I mean, we've talked a lot this past season. So I don't feel like there was a period where there was a lot of having to get to know each other. I think we were already there.
So what does that mean then for, as you're at things like this and you're talking about the future of the Browns, you're trying to figure all this out?
Yeah.
Can you just describe a little bit what you two are like together?
So describe our breakfast the other day.
I mean, I would write.
He had a burrito. Yeah, I just think it's important that we can talk about our vision for the team, but it has to be shared, and that's why we spent a lot of time when Andrew first was hired. We spent a lot of time together with Paul and Dee and Jimmy and JW and Whitney, and really honing in on the vision for this football team and making sure that it was a shared vision. So those conversations have been happening, and it doesn't happen with just a snap of the fingers. We've been working hard at it.
And obviously you're building a roster right now, but do you feel pretty locked in about what that vision is right now? Again, you've had those discussions.
Yes.
Do you feel like it's...
Oh yeah, we're very clear on what we want to be. Now, it's my job and our coaches' jobs to, when we get the final roster, to make sure that we can win in a couple different ways. So that thing is always something that you may change week to week in terms of how you attack a defense. So it's our job, once we get our players, to really form that plan of attack.
Kevin, now that you've had Joe Woods in the building for a bit, to what extent does Joe Schobert fit what you and Joe and Andrew have in mind for that middle line?
I think Joe's a good football player. I have not gotten a chance yet to get in front of him, as you can imagine, but I think from everybody that I've spoken to in the building about Joe the person, I think it's A++. So really looking forward to seeing how this whole process plays out, but this is free agency, so it has to, like Andrew mentioned earlier, it has to be both sides, and I'll just wait to see how this thing shakes out.
With Kareem Hunt, there's a little bit of a business decision that does have to be made there. Is the decision easier or harder for you guys, do you think?
Easier or harder?
As far as bringing him back, is it just a no-brainer bringing him back, or is it something that you guys really have to huddle up and have an in-depth discussion about?
I think Kareem's a good player. I've had conversations with him already. I think there's a future for Kareem here, obviously, and we'll work through all that. But he's a player certainly that we're eager to get to work with.
Jimmy, when you finished, you said you went through the roster or went through the game film last year to get a good idea what this roster was like. When you got done with it, did you say, "Man, there's more holes than I thought," or you look at defense, you say, "Well, linebackers kind of unsettled, safety's unsettled." Is that kind of the feeling you had, or?
No, I think, again, I said it a little bit earlier. I don't know that any team looks at the roster and says, "We're there, we're done." So I think it's going to be a yearly thing where you say, "All right, we maybe have depth here that we want to address, or there's a spot here where we really want to go get an impact player." But I feel confident with AB and his staff. I think we'll be able to identify some guys that will help us this year moving forward. But to say that every team's going to have the perfect roster going into week one, I don't think that's realistic.